Hello, second take. Welcome to another episode of the second take. You are now live, tuned in, and thank you for joining us. I'll be your host, Pastor TK. And please don't forget to share, like, subscribe to the channel. And if you are watching us for the first time, welcome. It is good to have you on the program. And just to recap, what we usually speak about on the second take is based on the name itself. It's a second take at what's going on in the world, what's going on in the church, what's going on all around us, but with a reason of getting to the bottom of something from a scriptural, biblical, or believer Christian stance, from a perspective where we are believers. And at the end of the day, we want to see the world differently from what it is currently showing us. And with that in mind, today's topic, as you could see there, it is what is really going on. And that might be seen as a very broad question. What are we talking about? Well, what's going on where? What's going on in the world? What's going on in terms of us as individuals? What's going on with what? Okay, and we're going to pretty much talk about this. And what drew me to this subject and what I feel God was talking to me about was mainly to do with uh, most of the most of the time we kind of revert to what's trending, what's going on in social media, what's going on the internet, what's being talked about in the news, because we do live in the world and we can't ignore certain things. And therefore, we are supposed to be in tune with what's going on, be in the world, but not of it. We are supposed to be uh, functioning in the world, but not belong to the world. And therefore, everything that is in the world can easily influence us or impact us. It might not influence us directly in terms of us being told what to do by what's going on in the world, but it can impact us. And we kind of have to be aware. Otherwise, you're walking blindly. You don't know what's going on. You're going to be victim to what is taking place, whether it is in business, whether it is in industry, whether it's in technology, whether it's in economics, finance, or in entertainment. So we try by all means to kind of stay in the light as far as that's concerned. And so, what brought me to this was something I found interesting in terms of what is influencing not only ourselves, but mostly when I speak, I know I speak so much about, our youth and all that, because unfortunately, in terms of social media, the other day I was actually listening to some people who are a bit younger talking about TikTok trends and slang language, that I had no idea had evolved to that extent, and it's the same way when we were, youth, when we were, teens and early 20s, there was language that we were using that our parents didn't even know uh, was language. You would say a certain word and they'd be like, what on earth does that even mean? So right now it's the next generation that's being influenced in a way where being influenced in itself is not bad, but influenced with what is what's bad. All right, we'll talk about that right at the end. But the influence there in language is, for example, we are going to speak how society speaks, what's trending, what's the way to communicate in this day and age. It's a given. Even now we might be speaking English, but probably the whole world was speaking Hebrew at some point. And by whole world I mean the world that existed in that small time after Adam and Eve. Whether some believe they were speaking in is it Sanskrit? I can't remember the specific language, but ancient Hebrew. But in any case, things evolve with how people either migrate, how people the social influence, economical influence, where things, at some point, I think people were speaking Italian, or if there was such a language as Roman, but because there wasn't a nation of Italy yet, but Rome was ruling the world. At some point, you had the what's this? The empire, the Mongol Empire was, taking over like a third or two-thirds of the world at some point. But I believe you get the drift. And so right now, where we are, we're at a point where things are moving way faster than probably 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago. And the way we consume information, the way we relate to each other on a global scale is now quite different. It's in a split second, in the blink of an eye. I could literally be talking to my relative in Canada, or my friend in the US, or someone in Vietnam or the Philippines or Australia. And the gap has been bridged in such a way that we can't ignore certain things that happen across the world. And which brings us to what we're talking about today. How much of an influence are we having on each other? And how quickly is it happening? And how easily are we adapting, adjusting, or are we pivoting on what is there, what's trending, what people are talking about, whether it's right now, it might be the war, whether it's gender roles, whether it's gender identity, whether it's human rights, whether it's black or white rights, whether it's Asian right, whatever the subject is, we are so in tune with it. I'm in Africa, but I can literally know what's taking place this very minute in the United States. I can know what's going on in Australia, even though most of them are sleeping right now. I can know about what's taking place in Vietnam, in Singapore, in Malaysia, in Dubai, wherever. And that can easily be something that becomes or rather can influence how I start to think because of what I intake. I'm going to play you a short clip. It's from a series that was trending a while back, and we're going to talk about why this specific clip. So I'm going to play this.
When life hands you lemons,
Make lemonade.
And apologies if there's any bad language.
no. First, you roll out a multimedia campaign to convince people lemons are incredibly scarce, which only works if you stockpile lemons, control the supply, then a media blitz. Lemons are the only way to say I love you, the must-have accessory for engagements or anniversaries. Roses are out, lemons are in, billboards that say she won't have sex with you unless you've got lemons. You cut the beers in on it. Limited edition lemon bracelets, yellow diamonds called lemon drops. You get Apple to call their new operating system OS Lemon. Little accent over the O. You charge 40% more for organic lemons, 50% more for conflict-free lemons. You pack the capital with lemon lobbyists. You get a Kardashian to suck a lemon wedge in a leaked sex tape. Timothy Chalamet wears lemon shoes at Cannes. Get a hashtag campaign. Something isn't cool or tight or awesome. No, it's lemon. Did you see that movie? Did you go to that concert? It was effing lemon. Billie Eilish, OMG, hashtag lemon. You get Dr. Oz to recommend 4 lemons a day and a lemon suppository supplement to get rid of toxins, because there is nothing scarier than toxins. Then you patent the seeds. You write a line of genetic code that makes lemons look just a little more like tits, and you get a gene patent for the tit lemon DNA sequence. You cross-pollinate, you get those seeds circulating in the wild, and then you sue the farmers for copyright infringement when that genetic code shows up on their land. Sit back, rake in the millions, and then when you're done and you've sold your empire for a few $1 billion, then and only then you make some fucking lemonade.
Okay, so the reason for that particular clip, and again, apologies for any bad language, but the reason for that was it pretty much sums up where we are in terms of media. What is being put out there? What do we consume? What has the public been taking in the past couple of years, especially after the advent of social media, the past 15 years, the past 17 to 20 years? It's all been based on what is trending, what the media has pushed to the people. It reminds me of apparently back in was it the 20s or the 30s, where diamonds were not even a thing. Diamonds were an industrial mineral that was used to cut things. And because there was such a surplus that I think it was the De Beers company that discovered them in Africa somewhere. And then in order to sell, they made it trendy and sacrilege for someone to propose, or rather, it was sacrilege not to propose with a diamond. And the moniker "Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend" was born, and the rest is history. Right now, you can't, and the more expensive the diamond, the better. We were even talking the other week at home about how right now the synthetic diamond, the one that is created in the lab, is the one that's trending now simply because it has no conflict. It's not a blood diamond, it's clean. And we're just saying, what are the chances that the same people that are pushing for the synthetic diamond to be the number one trending diamond are the same people that own these bigger companies, the De Beers and all that? Because initially I was like, wait a minute, what if these people are actually losing out, you know, from the sale of synthetic diamonds? And then I thought, wait a minute, why would they let this happen? What if it's actually the same people that are just packaging these synthetic diamonds as synthetic diamonds, but they're actually the blood diamonds? Because at the end of the day, when you really like look into the side of the people that are in control of these industries, the people that are actually influencing, the people that are actually making money out of these industries, out of these things, they cannot stand to lose. One, two, they've been around the bullpen. They know what they're doing. They've seen everything from beginning to end. They've done deals. They've been in business. They've seen how people think. They've seen how people act or react. And therefore, what are the chances that something might go over their heads? I think that's highly unlikely. And so now we start seeing that where there are certain movements that seemingly have an impact, movements that seemingly are for the people, I tend to question them because I'm thinking, um, what are the chances? You know, what are the chances that this Black Lives Matter is actually for Black lives? What are the chances that this stop uh, blood diamond trading is actually for that? What are the chances that cobalt mining uh, embargo, or what's that word, where people, the boycott on use of devices that use cobalt, like electric cars and cell phones and all these devices, what are the chances that people are actually going to listen and stop using these things? Highly unlikely, because most of the things that we're talking about are stuff that people regularly use and need to use. And these big companies know it. These trending places, these trending companies know it. And therefore, they're not just going to sit back and be like, you know what, it's okay. You know, we can lose this business, we can lose these billions. And so, we're in a time where what's going on and what we're told is going on can be two different things, as long as there is the right amount of buzz around a subject or a topic. That can easily become the reality for some, and whether anything is to the contrary, that ceases to matter because it has become all about perception. And so it's about being led, it's about what you want people to believe. We have so many trends on social media. We have things that so like definitely have an impact on us, whether young or old. We have, for example, trending topics can be all the rage, and they can, you know, take over what's important. For example, we can have uh there was a story about Mr. Beast. um Apparently he dug 100 wells, or is it 100 wells in in a number of countries, or in a, yeah, he dug a couple of wells in Africa. And apparently the social media world or people were actually angry at him for whatever reason. I didn't go too deep into that, but that's just another example of what I believe some of the people that were commenting were actually saying, but what about the refugees and people that need help in this country? You know, and so it's almost like he can't do anything right, even though it might have been something that's commendable, something that's impactful to a certain group of people. At the end of the day, as long as it's not something that the social media sphere expected or wanted, it's going to be a problem for you. So as long as it's not deemed important, it's the influence becomes nullified. It doesn't matter. Perfect example. Right now, we're talking about something that benefits our lives. On this channel, at this church, we talk about things that we believe benefit people's lives. Whether we like it or not, God has put us on this earth to be an influence, right? And we believe that by all these programs, by all these initiatives, by going out into the world, by preaching the word, we are doing what God created us to do. But do we have as much influence as, for example, sorry to use her, but Kim Kardashian or Kanye West? No, we don't. But that's just how it is in the world, that something else that has more of a backing is going to trend and is going to have more of an impact or an influence. So it's not necessarily about what is important to our spirits, our souls, and our overall well being. It's about what can get more traction. Trending celebrities and influencers have, as long as they have clout, what they say becomes gospel, what they do becomes gospel, who they follow, who they listen to, what they are into in terms of lifestyle is what becomes gospel. And so we can't ignore influence, we can't ignore certain things that people deem as irrelevant to their well-being personally, because it is detrimental to someone else, to the people that sort of live for those things, who live on the internet, who live on these platforms, these social media platforms. And so it's important that we realize that even though we might think that, you know what, I'm not part of this, I'm not going to do this, I'm not listening to these people, and therefore I'm not impacted, it doesn't matter that these people exist or what they do is, having an impact on someone else. As long as I'm not part of it, who cares? But it matters. We have these trending challenges, these, uh, do a dance, do this thing for charity, pour water on your head, da 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 da. And these things still impact. We have trending products, like the way that Prime drink by what's this influencer, when it launched, it became all the rage. It was something that, you felt if you didn't participate in, you were kind of left behind. And I mean, you know, mostly youthful people or people that were following these trends. But at the end of the day, we are going to come across something that is of impact, be, like that is impacting someone, whether we are part of it or not, whether we follow it or not, whether it's trending in our own sphere or not. And what's important is to understand these things, even though we might not be part of them, but understanding them at the level that they are being impactful, at the level that they are doing something for someone, at the level that they are influencing someone else. I was talking to someone the other day and I was like, isn't it funny that most of what is being pushed on social media is not even the biggest things that are happening in the world, in our society, in our communities, like in a small cluster of communities. For example, how many of us actually sit down and talk about gay rights? How many, like, besides, it being on the internet somewhere, but how many of us in our families, just you, your mom, your dad, your sister, and so on, just on a regular day, just start talking about that? How many of us talk about sports, about who did what in sport and how much that has changed your life? I would bet that it isn't to that large extent. It might be something that comes up and we're commentating on it, but it's not something that's personal. But the way social media is portraying it is as if, these LGW thingies are so much of an impact. These people are so downtrodden, the rights of these people are so important, and we need to push for people to, kids need to get reassigned and la da 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 da, as if this is one of the most important things to happen in the world. And I'm speaking from a person in Africa, so we might not have that. I can personally say, as an individual, these things only exist on the internet. What do I mean? We are not personally influenced, or rather, we are not personally impacted or directly in contact with some of the things that are taking place that the internet makes us believe are as important. So you might have these things being spoken about on these trendy shows, these podcasts, and so on. And what the big guys have managed to do is make these things and these subjects, these topics, seem like they are such a big deal, but it is 1% of what is deemed important in the world. And the people, this group of people, this LG community, doesn't even have, like, when we drop it in the ocean of the population of the world of 7 billion plus people, it is merely a drop that doesn't even cause a ripple effect. But it is being made to seem like such a huge subject, such a huge concern, such a big thing that everyone needs to be behind, that a small group of people is starting to control the narrative of the entire world. And yet it's coming from a very small place. The major contributor to this subject, this topic trending, is the United States. Nowhere else in the world is this such a subject on a daily basis. Daily basis, every single hour, there's probably like 10 plus people that are talking about it on the internet. In fact, 10 is an understatement, probably 50 plus. And yet, in the real world, if you go to regular, let's say we're talking about America right now, if we go to America in the real world and ask a regular person what they think about that, those rights, and so on, they will tell you the contrary. But the internet makes us believe that everyone is behind this and rallying behind people that are downtrodden and misunderstood and taken for granted, and what people believe are, they need their voice heard and so on. But that's not even the case. And there's so many other subjects that, there was this statement that was said about how when something important is going on behind the scenes, something that changes the world in some way, a world changing event, there will be a controversial story that is launched. R. Kelly gets arrested, or Caitlyn Jenner has, what's his name? Bruce Jenner is now Caitlyn Jenner, or whatever, a huge thing that takes attention, the people's attention from something that was important in terms of world events. And then we start concentrating on someone getting surgery and deciding that they're no longer a man. And so this has been used as like propaganda has been used since the dawn of media, since the writing began, since keeping records was a thing. And we are now at the height of it because it's so easy, it's so instant to influence people, whether it's through videos, whether it's through voices, whether it's you speaking, as a celebrity speaking, or someone who has influence speaking. But as long as you can distract people, give them something else to focus on, it's so easy to hide certain things. And it's because the people that are behind the dissemination of information, because right now it might seem like everyone has their own freedom to disseminate information, to speak about what's on their minds, but we still use other people's platforms. And what we speak about, there was this thing that I then started calling reverse influence, where the things we talk about, for example, I might just have podcasts talking about gender stuff, right? But the reason I'm talking about it is because it has been made to seem like a big deal. And now my content constantly becomes about gender and all these things, because in my head, I have been informed and influenced to understand that it is such a big deal and we need to address it. And yet I could just be talking about Jesus. And therefore, we've been reverse influenced to start trying to influence within the context of the theme of the world. Although, on the other hand, because we now understand that, okay, so there is someone behind the dissemination of information, and therefore we need to create our own content and disseminate information that is truthful, that is about God, information that the Holy Spirit passes on, that He wants us to know as humanity, and therefore we disseminate it that way, as opposed to us creating content simply because we believe that is the trend and that's what we need to fight. And so I gave an example of how about if we're told that there is a war outside and the apocalypse has arrived, and we consume so much of that information that we start believing it, even though when we step outside, we see, wait, there's no war, there's no missiles, there's no burning buildings, there's nothing. But because the media told me, and everyone that I know is talking about it, and this influencer that I listen to has said it countless times, then maybe it's true. And then now the way I think has been programmed for me to believe that there's a war out there. Like what we were talking about the other on the other subject, that there's the red pill movement. The more that the youngsters listen to the red pill movement, is the more they're going to start thinking that women are trash, and vice versa. Women are going to start thinking men are trash, and you need to treat women this way, and women are going to start thinking you need to treat men this way. And there's a huge thing that is probably going to warrant a whole uh, different conversation about it. But the way that men and women are being pitted against each other right now, one of the trendiest uh, topics, subjects, hashtags to and biggest ways to create to have your content viewed is to talk about how women are this and men are this, and you need women or you need men, or you don't need women or you don't need men. And you'll be talking to these two demographics as if they're two separate entities that are constantly in battle with each other. And therefore, what is that creating? A situation where it's toxic and no one wants to settle down. No one wants to listen to each other. You know, we have so much of men are this, blanketing, men are this. And therefore, any woman who hasn't been with a man, or even one who is with a man, a husband, a spouse, they will start thinking that, you know what, this small thing that he does means he's this, and therefore I don't need to be with him. And vice versa with men. They're going to be told that women are this, and the moment she does something, he's going to be like, so that thing was right. Even if they don't say it consciously, subconsciously, they've been influenced or have consumed so much information regarding that particular negative side of the opposite sex that now they're starting to believe that, you know what, I don't need this. And we're in constant battle with each other. And now you're fighting, you don't know why. You don't want to settle down because you've been influenced so much against guys. And God forbid, now you turn to your own gender. But these are things that we need as Christians to talk more about as we round up, because the influence is out there, whether we want to believe it or not. You can say, I am not easily impacted, I am not easily influenced. Good for you. Thank God for that, for you. But what about the rest of the world? The people that are, sorry to say, maybe gullible or naive or don't know any better. In 1 Timothy 6, verse 11, it says, "But as for you, O man of God, flee from these things. Aim at and pursue righteousness, true goodness, moral conformity to the character of God, godliness, the fear of God, faith, love, steadfastness, and gentleness." So we are to flee from these things that seemingly have an impact or are so important to us. And I know I'm talking to most of the people are probably talking to are adults, grown-ups that are like, okay, but that's not me. Okay, good for you. But what about your young brother, your young sister, your daughter, your son? These are the people that we need to consider. And our colleagues that seem lost in the world, that seem like they don't know who they are. And therefore, what we then need to become is the influence. And so in Hebrews 10, verse 24 to 25, it says, let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. And this goes back to this, that we pursue righteousness. And therefore, when we pursue righteousness, we become it. We become one with God, the character, conforming to the character of God. And the fear of God will then drive us to push the gospel to the people that don't know it, the people that need the impact and the influence. And In essence, we become this, what's being talked about in Hebrews, that we encourage one another with that, what's in First Timothy. And therefore, brothers and sisters, as we always say, as is our culture on this show, we always say our mandate, our purpose for being in this world is to preach the gospel to all four corners of the world, to preach the gospel to everyone so that Jesus is known to everyone. And don't think that you don't possess what it takes in order to have an impact, in order to speak to someone in a way that will bring them closer to God, in a way that God will minister to them. Pray, even if you feel like you speaking with them directly might not have an impact. Okay, start there. Let's start there. And then the rest will take care of itself. The more you do something, the more it becomes part of your character, and the more you're actually going to have the chances to impact and influence someone. On that note, I thank you for watching, and I pray that you were blessed. I pray that we didn't just ramble on, but something was of impact to you, and that we are going to be of influence out there, not just based off of the things we've talked about today, but also because of what you have, the lifestyle that you have been living as a believer, as a Christian. And even if you are new or haven't really been, have been struggling with your belief and don't know where you stand, you still have an opportunity to meet Jesus, to meet God, to be an influence that is positive in the world, because the world is truly sort of losing its way and going in a direction where we have to be careful and we have to guard our hearts. So be blessed, brothers and sisters. Have an awesome day. If you're watching this at night, have an awesome evening and the rest of the week if you are going to catch us next week. And if you're watching this as a marathon, well, we'll see you on the next one. Be blessed. Thank you for watching.